Greetings, friends. This is Dr. Flo Barbee-Watkins with the Presbytery of the James. And the third time is always a charm. We have Barbara Chalfant with us for the third part of this podcast. Welcome again, Barbara. We're so glad to have you here. Let's just dig in right where we left off. So now I'm going to ask you something a little bit more personal. Mm-hmm. You've been a certified Christian educator for 37 years, and I'm sure you've seen some things and been a part of some things that have gone kaput. And you've also experienced some massive successes. Tell us about one of each.
Oh, goodness.
Just one.
Well, let's see. I'm not sure I've ever had a massive success. But I've written a lot of Vacation Bible School curricula. I've written camp curricula, and it's worked really well. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to do that. One of the fun things that could be, depending on your view, could be a success or a failure. I'm not sure. I decided that the children of the church were missing the movement of Advent into Christmas, that season. And they were missing the idea that God works long term in our lives. It isn't like you blow out 4 candles and ta-da, there's a baby. So what I did was I made bodies out of fabric, one each body for each one of the characters in the Christmas story, and I gave them to all of the Sunday school classes and asked them to dress them as the character in the Bible story. And they moved around the church towards the front of the sanctuary for Christmas Eve. And so every Sunday, the children would come in and would look for, where is Mary and Joseph? And they took to this wonder. They took these dolls and began to have relationship with them in some ways. One day I came around a corner in the church building where Mary and Joseph were seated, and there was a little girl who had crawled up into Mary's lap.
Oh, wow.
And was speaking with her intently about some, I'm sure, deep theological issue. And I just backed up out of the hallway and went around the other way. We had shepherds who were in the sanctuary, and we had a older lady who spoke to one of them because he was in her pew. And and it was just really interesting, the conversation around that. The 4-year-olds had the angel, and I went to them with fabric swatches, and I said, see these fabrics, which one is the skin color for angels? And they said, none of them. And I said, so what does an angel look like? And they said, sparkly. So I went and I got all the different colors of lamé, and I laid them out before them, and I said, which one? And they chose the bright gold lamé. So I made a body in bright gold and gave them an angel outfit. And they said, oh, we don't need anything for the wings. We've got the wings and the hair. It turned out that I had a gold lamé angel with red curly hair and pink lamé wings.
Wow.
It was quite something. Quite something. But the idea behind the whole thing was that they got a sense of the movement of Advent, one that they could touch and feel and walk with. And it worked really well, except for the adults. The adults were scared of them. They were so human-like that when you walked into a room where the bodies were, you felt like there was someone watching you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
the adults didn't like them very much. So that was a failure on their part. But the children loved them.
Wow. Wow. What a great story. What a great story.
Yeah.
So again, we're talking about the congregations in the Presbytery of the James.
Mm-hmm.
And we are learning that our congregations average, they average on the older adult end, more so
Correct.
the younger adult end. In fact, a third of our Presbyterian congregations have members over 70 as the largest demographic. So a question is, how do we merge the fundamentals, the traditions of how Christian education is embodied in the congregation with all of the new and innovative things that you're learning and at APSI you're experiencing and talking about risks? How do you merge the two to create some type of synergy without there being this jerkiness of either or, but both and? Does that make sense?
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. Traditions are hugely important. And actually, a renewal of our spiritual traditions has happened over the last 30 years. With the Taizé movement and with seeking out spiritual direction and those sorts of things. Deep-rooted tradition has become renewed in these days, which is a hopeful sign, I think, a hopeful sign. I would also say you have to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater in education, because there are things that have worked for a while that may be still working but need to be tweaked. The Sunday school hour on Sunday morning and worship. Now, a lot of churches do Sunday school and then worship the next hour. But some churches, which is hard for me to say, but some churches do them at the same time.
Oh.
Sunday school and worship at the same time. And that's difficult for me as an educator because it means that I'm missing all of the adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to be really careful when you innovate and when you change, not to let go of things like that. Change is good. Innovation is great. Wisdom about how to weave them into the fabric of the church is the best.
Okay. That makes good sense. That makes good sense. I was listening to or reading one of the people that I follow as a innovative leader in Christendom, Carey Nieuwhof, and he was talking exactly about some of those same things. Like you said, prayer is not something that's going to change. You're not going to take prayer, out of what it means to be a Christian. But when you pray, it's the part that you have to look at your setting and see if praying at 7 a.m. works for a congregation to come together, then you do that via a conference call. But you're still keeping prayer. It doesn't have to be at 10:45 or doesn't have to be on Wednesday night before a Bible study. And I think that's what I'm hearing, that it's not that you want to throw the prayer out. It's the way and the means in which you enact upon those things are at the core values.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
The church I was a member of during COVID had decided to do a Zoom prayer meeting
Mm.
every week. And then we realized that the older adults were having a problem getting in on Zoom.
Mm.
And they were our best prayers.
Wow.
So we did an hour before we did Zoom, we did an hour phone call. And we figured out a way to get all of the phones connected and to talk together because they could manage a phone call.
Okay.
We would call them and they would just pick up
Mm-hmm.
and pray together.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it's about managing to remember all of the people in the church
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we change like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. And I think that we were forced to change with COVID.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, do we see the same sense of urgency to look and evaluate some of the things that we're doing now
Mhm.
and evaluate, are they working for us? And if they're not, what do we need to do in order to create workability? Because that's what you all did. The older adults were not as versed in Zoom, and they were not as versed in being able to get on the calls. And so you figured out something that worked for them
That's right.
because you had to. I sometimes believe that the church doesn't think it has to pivot because we're so stuck in the tradition that we won't let the new thing, as the prophet Isaiah says, spring forth. And it sounds like to me that that's where education comes in as well. We're still
Right.
praying. We're just praying in a different way. We
Right.
want to be as inclusive as possible. We want to include as many people as possible. But we're going to not exclude a group of people, and we're not going to let a pandemic keep us from praying.
Right.
Yeah. So final question. What advice would you give to someone who was discerning about becoming a Christian educator?
Ooh. First off, is there anything else you can do? Second, I'd really push them about being an educator versus being a pastor. And some people can do both. Some people who do both mourn that they don't have enough time to do the education portion of their jobs. There are very few full-time Presbyterian church educators.
Okay.
And so, and I don't see that changing over the next decade.
Okay.
But I do see the need for professional church educators. Education is so foundational for every aspect of the church, for every age group, for every aspect. It is foundational. And to not have people who know what they're doing and can help would be just a sad day. But if they are excited about education in the church and they are looking to explore their call, I am willing to walk with them.
Amen. 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 Well, folks, this is going to wrap up our time today. Again, thank you, Barbara, for being with us. We're looking forward to seeing how your ministry is going to expand and how your ministry is going to impact our congregations in the Presbytery of the James. I know that you have a lot to share and a lot to give. And my hope is that people will see us, not just you, but all of us, as resources in being able to help congregations to think differently about things, to touch them and move them and inspire them to recognize that just because you don't have Sunday school on Sunday mornings doesn't mean that it's not Christian education. It just means it's at a different time.
That's right.
All right. Any last words you want to say?
Don't forget camp ministry.
Say a little bit more about that.
Camp ministry through Camp Hanover or Massanetta or Montreat is significantly important. It pulls people away from their regular, everyday place of being and allows them to live in nature and to be nurtured by that. Don't forget camp.
Don't forget camp. Cool beans. Well, again, thank you so very much for watching and or listening to our podcast. We hope that this has been a blessing to you and that you can take some of what we say and apply it to your ministry and to your ministry context. Again, this is Dr. Flo Barbee-Watkins, the host of the podcast, Innovate, Ignite, and Inspire. And we want you to continue to have a blessed day. So stay inspired.